Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. The tourism minister grimaced as he read aloud the causes of death in autopsy reports of the growing number of Americans who have died recently while vacationing in the Dominican Republic: heart attack, septic shock, pneumonia. More accustomed to ribbon-cutting ceremonies than to grappling with the uproar over Americans turning up dead in their hotel rooms, the minister, Fernando Javier Garcia, insisted that the authorities had nothing to hide. "There is no mystery whatsoever regarding any of these deaths," said Mr. Garcia, even as he acknowledged that the FBI was investigating what had happened to a Maryland couple found dead in their room at an all-inclusive resort in La Romana on May 30. That puzzling episode helped ignite the crisis now encircling the Dominican Republic's tourism industry, a pillar of the Caribbean country's economy that employs more than 300,000 people. At least 9 American tourists have died in the country over the past year, and separate reports are emerging of Americans being assaulted at Dominican resorts. Together, the trends cast a harsh light on safety procedures and blundering responses to some incidents involving tourists, even in cases where the victims seem to have died from natural causes. Hitting back at the alarms raised by relatives of the dead Americans, Dominican officials assert that the number of deaths in recent months is no greater than would be expected statistically in a country visited by more than 2 million Americans each year. The United States government, which holds remarkable sway in the Dominican Republic compared with some other parts of the Caribbean and Latin America, appears to support the Dominican government's contention that the alarm over the deaths may be exaggerated. "We have not seen an uptick in the number of U.S. citizen deaths reported to the department," said an official with the State Department, who was not authorized to give their name. Of the 9 Americans who have died in the Dominican Republic over the last year, 5 have reportedly died of heart-related conditions, including one whose family said they do not view the death as suspicious. Cardiovascular problems account for nearly half of all American tourist deaths abroad, according to the Centers for Disease Control. 3 others, including the Maryland couple, were reported to have had respiratory issues, and one man's family said he fell ill and died after drinking whiskey from a hotel minibar, although Dominican authorities say his death was caused by septic shock, multiple organ failure and pneumonia. With the latest reports, the Dominican Republic's tourism industry, and its wager on luring vacationers to colossal all-inclusive resorts, are coming under international glare. These palatial complexes often combine ostentation, minimal contact with local communities, and abundant opportunities for overindulgence. At one resort where 2 Americans have died, the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Punta Cana, a suite for 2 goes for about $500 a night. For that price, guests eat all they want, drink all they want, gamble all they want, play golf or water polo or laser tag, even engage in the fantasy of being a guitar-shredding rock star without ever leaving the resort's confines. Despite the concerns over the recent deaths, the Hard Rock was hardly depleted of guests last week. Families from Brazil chatted in Portuguese as they gorged on sirloin in the all-you-can-eat barbecue restaurant. Russian-speaking gamblers tested their luck at casino tables near a sequin-adorned stretch limousine that Madonna once used. Dominicans working at the hotel greeted guests in English while Creole-speaking groundskeepers from Haiti cared for the manicured gardens outside. Several Americans and Canadians guzzled cups of Presidente beer around breakfast time at a beachfront cabana. "If there's one thing I know, it's don't be guided by fear," said Mark Purcell, 46, a financial associate from Toronto who was at the Hard Rock with his wife to attend a wedding. They said it was their 4th trip to the Dominican Republic. "We're having an amazing time and plan to return," he said. Paula Rainieri, president of the Dominican Hotels Association, told reporters this month that the deaths are isolated cases and contended that the country is a safe destination for all visitors. Still, the sense of public alarm persisting over the Americans being found dead by hotel employees at not just the Hard Rock, but at various resorts in different parts of the Dominican Republic, has grown to such levels that the FBI has sent in a small team to the country to assist local investigators with toxicological tests. The FBI investigators are specifically examining the case of the Maryland couple, Nathaniel E. Holmes and Cynthia A. Day, who were found dead in their hotel room at the Grand Bahia Principe Hotel in La Romana on May 30. Another American, Miranda Shaw Werner, 41, of Allentown, Pennsylvania, died at the same resort complex on May 25. Autopsies showed that the deaths of the Maryland couple were a result of respiratory failure brought on by pulmonary edema, fluid in the lungs. But attempts to explain how that happened quickly became confusing. Several bottles of medication were found in their room. The spokesman for the Ministry of Public Health, Carlos Suero, told Fox News that Mr. Holmes died first, and Ms. Day died afterward, probably from the shock of seeing the person beside her dead. With questions continuing to swirl, Mr. Garcia, the tourism minister, said in an interview that the authorities were carefully reviewing the deaths in La Romana and that it could take 30 to 40 days for comprehensive toxicology reviews to be completed. In the meantime, researchers who study human exposure to pesticides and other chemicals said the circumstances of the Maryland couple's death in the same room on the same night increase the likelihood that they died of poisoning or another environmental factor. Some of the earlier cases did seem to be consistent with organophosphate poisoning, said Dana B. Barr, a professor at Emory University's Rollins School of Public Health. Dr. Barr pointed to a case in the United States Virgin Islands in 2015, when a Delaware family of 4 was seriously injured after being exposed to a pesticide when the apartment below them was fumigated. In poisoning cases, Dr. Barr said, the problem often stems from the pesticide not being properly contained. The chemicals could seep into a vent that is not adequately sealed, or be sucked inside by a hotel air conditioner. Before the Maryland couple's death came to light, the Dominican tourism industry started drawing greater scrutiny in late May when a Delaware woman, Tammy Lawrence Daly, said she had been attacked in January at the Majestic Elegance Resort in Punta Cana by a man in a hotel uniform, who severely beat her and left her for dead. Tensions ratcheted higher over security in the country when David Ortiz, the former Boston Red Sox slugger, was shot in the back this month in a popular bar in Santo Domingo. Dominican investigators say that Mr. Ortiz was not the gunman's intended target, and was mistakenly shot because he was dressed similarly and was seated next to the man the gunman was after. Amid all the confusion about safety, people around the United States have begun canceling plans to vacation in the Dominican Republic. Lauren Duffy, a professor at Clemson University who has studied the country's tourism industry, said that whether the recent deaths are connected may not even matter to people who are planning their summer breaks or family getaways. The perception of safety has already been attacked, said Dr. Duffy. You can see how vulnerable tourism-dependent countries are to a crisis like this, and I'm calling it a crisis because they are starting to roll out the media campaign and the crisis response. Dominican leaders have also grown more defensive, asserting repeatedly that the country is safe while sometimes hinting at possible conspiracies aimed at the Dominican Republic's lucrative hotel industry, including attempts to undermine the president's ruling party. Mr. Garcia, the tourism minister, declined to discount such theories. I don't know who's behind this campaign, but if there's someone behind it, they'll become known, Mr. Garcia said. Some relatives of Americans who died in the country are relating harrowing tales of pleading with hotel employees for ambulances, long waits to retrieve the bodies of their loved ones, and callous responses from Dominican officials. Dawn McCoy, whose husband, David Harrison, died while on vacation in July 2018 at the Hard Rock Hotel, said that she wasn't suspicious about his passing until she learned of the recent spate of deaths. The couple's trip last year was their 19th visit to the Dominican Republic. I like to say, we were lucky 18 times, she said. Feeling ill with what he initially thought was food poisoning, Mr. Harrison had left his wife and son at the pool and returned to their room, where he slept for more than 6 hours, she said. The couple then went to the casino until about 2:30 a.m., and returned to the room after Mr. Harrison again felt ill. If we were at home, I would tell you to take me to the hospital, Ms. McCoy recalled him saying. Just after 5 a.m., Ms. McCoy woke up to find her husband soaked in sweat and grunting. Her son, just 12 at the time, pressed on Mr. Harrison's chest, trying to perform CPR. He was just doing what he had seen on TV, Ms. McCoy said. She scrambled to the phone and called the front desk. She asked an employee to call an ambulance, but was apologetically told that the policy was to send a hotel doctor first. "They're being so pleasant, but they're saying, 'I'm sorry, that's the policy,'" Ms. McCoy recalled. She said she called the front desk twice more, begging for an ambulance, until the hotel doctor arrived exactly 22 minutes after her first call. The ambulance came another half hour after that. Mr. Harrison died later that day, July 14, 2018. When she checked out with her son on July 15, a hotel employee asked her to step aside for a moment. Then, she said, they handed her a bill of more than $2,000 for the hotel doctor's services, which she had not ever requested. That was on top of the ambulance and hospital bills. An autopsy and toxicology report for Mr. Harrison, shared by Ms. McCoy, said his death was a result of clogged arteries. Tests for common recreational drugs were negative. Ms. McCoy said he took medicine for high blood pressure. Gregory G. Davis, a professor of forensic pathology and the chief coroner and medical examiner in Jefferson County, Alabama, reviewed the autopsy for the New York Times and said it appeared to be a thorough examination that did not raise any red flags. "I have no doubt that his death came as a great surprise to his family, but it seems fairly straightforward," Dr. Davis said. He said the report indicated that the man's heart was heavy and showed signs of clogged arteries. But Bruce Goldberger, a professor of forensic toxicology at the University of Florida College of Medicine, said he thought Mr. Harrison should have been tested for more than just cocaine, marijuana, opioids, and amphetamines, all of which were negative. Given the attention around the tourist deaths, Dr. Goldberger said the authorities should also be conducting comprehensive tests for carbon monoxide, pesticides, and anything else that could have been present in the hotel room. "It's not a complete investigation," he said of the toxicological report on Mr. Harrison. Another American, Robert Wallace, 67, of California, also died after staying at the Hard Rock in April, where he reportedly drank whiskey from the room's minibar. Unlike minibars in American hotels that generally feature miniature bottles of liquor, the minibars at the Hard Rock dispense drinks from large bottles of vodka, rum, tequila, and whiskey that hang upside down in a cabinet. The tourism minister, Mr. Garcia, said that Mr. Wallace died of multiple organ failure and pneumonia that did not appear to be related to any toxic exposure. Even so, the Hard Rock Hotel in Punta Cana announced changes on Friday in response to concerns over the deaths of its guests, saying it would remove the liquor dispensers from its rooms. Representatives of the hotel did not respond to specific questions about the delay in calling an ambulance for Mr. Harrison or the policy of involving an in-house doctor and billing Ms. McCoy. However, the hotel said in a statement that, as an added measure, a U.S.-based healthcare facility will be contracted to ensure the on-site health clinic is complying with all international and U.S. standards of care.